thank you for coming to what I hope will be a very special discussion, because we're not celebrating 120 years of age every day, not even every year, and this is what this evening is starting from. The anniversary, 120 years of the existence of the Jewish Museum in Prague. We will be talking about Jewish museums in current Europe, perhaps beyond Europe. We will be talking about especially 3 Jewish museums, Vienna, Prague, Warsaw, that are in many ways very different. Just look at the architecture, perhaps think of the collections, perhaps think about when they were founded. The Viennese Jewish Museum is even older than 110, 10, 12, 13 years older perhaps than the Jewish Museum in Prague.
11. Last year we had 130 years.
Okay, thank you. And then there is the newer Jewish Museum, POLIN, which was created as a project 2005 and opened 2013. But all these differences notwithstanding, these Jewish museums have much in common and share similar goals and perhaps similar challenges, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I think generally that, you know, for humans 120 is of course that's what we wish people. That's what we might celebrate. That's what all the jokes are about. But for Jewish museums, I think this is a moment for reflection, and not only for looking back, but also looking forward. So we will be talking about the significance, the role of Jewish museum in the current world, about their future in the world that is not easy. It's not easy generally. It's not easy for museums, and certainly not for Jewish museums. And we hardly could have a better group of panelists with us from the 3 museums. They have different expertise, and I think it's a testimony about the need to combine different education, different expertise in museums, in Jewish museums. They all have a long history with their respective Jewish museums and other Jewish museums, and they're in leadership positions today. So let me start from my left, your right. I'm very happy to welcome Barbara Staudinger, who's the director of the Jewish Museum in Vienna. Barbara studied history, theater studies, and also Jewish studies in Vienna, and she worked. She's a researcher originally. She worked, and still, I guess, if she has time for it. and she worked in a number of projects and museums. Among, I can name the curatorship or co-curatorship of the Austrian Auschwitz exhibition, and then several other Jewish museums before she became the director of Vienna. Now we have Pavla Niklová, who most of you, I think, know. Pavla is the director of the Jewish Museum in Prague. She is very experienced creative arts manager who specializes in fostering multidisciplinary collaboration. She worked for a number of years in the United States with non-profit organizations, including the Václav Havel Library Foundation. We know each other from the time when I myself worked at the Jewish Museum. We intersected for a short period of time, and I'm very happy that Pavla returned 3 years ago, right, as the director of this museum. And last, but certainly not least, we have Joanna Fikus, who's the head of the exhibition department at the POLIN museum. She's a cultural anthropologist by education. And she has been with the POLIN Museum from the very beginning, from 2005, right? So the beginning of the project, before the building was built and the permanent exhibition was created. And she's also very active in the Association of the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. My name is Michal Frankl. I'm a historian working in the Leibniz Institute for the History and Culture of Eastern Europe. And as I said, I had the privilege of working at the Jewish Museum Prague some time ago. And it's very nice being back and discussing Jewish Museum. And I realized that I talked too long. And what we're going to do is, for the first part, we will have a guided, moderated discussion. I'll be asking questions, and we will have some rich answers. And then we will have ample space for your questions. So with that, again, welcome here. And the first question is, I know that each of you would be able to speak about your museum for hours, so that you're kindly asked to just very briefly introduce the museum, but especially pick up one exhibition or event that you think stands for the role of your museum. What is it that you would like to say about Vienna, Warsaw, or Prague? Barbara.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. For all of you who haven't been to the Jewish Museum Vienna as today, I would like to show like 4 slides. Where are we? We are right in the middle, in the city of Vienna. We have 2 locations. Is it, where do you have to press that? Yeah. Okay, we have 2 locations. One location is on Judenplatz. For those who may be familiar with the Shoah Memorial of Rachel Whitered, it's right behind the Shoah Memorial. It includes the excavation of the medieval synagogue of Vienna and a core exhibition on medieval life, Jewish life in Vienna. Then we have our other location. The bigger one is in Dorotheagasse, like 7 minutes walking distance away. There we have also a core exhibition covering Jewish life in Vienna from the 16th century up to today. Yes, I could talk about Jewish history in Vienna for a very long time, but we skipped that part. We have on both locations, Judenplatz and Dorotheagasse, as well, temporary exhibitions. And when I was asked to think about what is the role of Jewish museums today, I think about the core exhibitions as well. This picture is from the Dorotheagasse, and we are right now in the progress of curating a new core exhibition for Dorotheagasse. So that's a very exciting process, and a process which takes some years. So please don't expect the new core exhibition happening next year. It will take at least 2 years ahead. But I thought about the temporary exhibitions, and I just wanted to talk about one exhibition which is right now on display. It's called Black Jews, White Jews on Skin Color and Prejudice. It's an exhibition, and I think that's one central point I want to say. It's an exhibition which we made in as a reaction on what happened 2 years or these whole 2 years after October 7th, 2023. We asked ourselves why do Jews who were in the 1960s in the US not seen as white persons, why are these same Jews now and today labeled as white colonizers? And is, of course, because it has nothing to do with your actual skin color. Skin color is a racist conception of the world, and it means so much more than your actual skin color. And we made a whole exhibition about it. It's now on display in Dorotheagasse until end of April. And I show you one. This is our poster child, and I show you one other object. It's also an artwork from Aaron Silverman, which he made right after the killing of George Floyd. And in reaction to this, his home is only a few hundred meters away. What I mean with this exhibition is, I think the role of a Jewish museum as a minority museum is to being aware what is ongoing in today's society. And we do make historical exhibitions, but also every time we do them, we ask ourselves, where is the point that this exhibition has something to do with us today? And we want to point this out. And I think that's our main aim as a Jewish museum in Vienna.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm sure we'll talk more about this. It was also an invitation to travel to Vienna as quickly as you can to see the temporary exhibition. But let's now move to Warsaw.
Thank you. Does it work? Yes. So thank you again. Thank you for inviting us, for having us. There is this Jewish greeting till 120, and I was thinking that it's not the best way to wish you all the best, so probably I wish you all the best till 240. Museum of the History of Polish Jews, we do not have such a long history as Vienna and Prague. Also, we do not have also such a rich collection. So the reason why we've decided we want to create the Museum of the History of Polish Jews was that we wanted to show not only how Jews perished, but how they lived for almost 1,000 years. And that was our main reason of creating the museum. As you see here, we are in the center of pre-war Jewish district, in the center of Warsaw Ghetto, in front of the monument which is commemorating Warsaw Ghetto uprising. But the way how we have created the core exhibition was using a lot of not only original objects, but also reconstructions, multimedia. And you can see here one of the beautiful, really reconstruction of the wooden synagogue from Gwoździec. It's a small town near Lviv, in today's Ukraine. We created thanks to educational project, a complete reconstruction of bima, ceiling and roof. But sometimes we are recalling all these stories about 1,000 years of the history of Polish Jews, and one should ask ourselves, why are we doing it? So for us, the most important thing is to show people, to bring back this history in order to counteract against discrimination and exclusion and anti-Semitism. And that's exactly what Barbara were more or less talking just now. So here you see the interior of the POLIN Museum. But what I wanted to tell you a little bit about the temporary exhibition, once you asked me what exhibition I would like to talk about, is because I would like to share with you our thoughts about mistakes that we have done and consequences of these mistakes. So in the core exhibition we have decided that we want to tell the story from the perspective of Jews who were living in particular historical periods, which is a perfect solution that you are telling the story what happened then. But for us, people, contemporary people, sometimes it's very difficult to find ourselves in this history, to find our emotions and to make it relevant to us. Also, we decided that in temporary exhibitions we will be directly addressing our contemporary thoughts, questions and emotions. And this is one of the examples. It's the exhibition which is called 1945, Not the End, Not the Beginning. We decided that we would like also to talk about dark sides of our history, of our mutual history. I'm sure that here in Czech you also had this kind of thinking. So in Poland, in terms of, in the Jewish context, among other things that happened, it's the issue of stolen property of Jews during the war. So once Jews were murdered and perished, their property remained and it was taken by Poles. So we decided that we want to tell about the story, what happened to Jews who after the war were coming back to their hometowns. And they confronted violence, they confronted very difficult emotions from their neighbors, which is the source of a lot of hard feelings among us. So that's basically what I would like to tell you, I understand a little bit later, if you are interested in. But coming back to the reason why we are doing this, or why we are also talking about difficult subjects and sometimes we are not so easy for our visitors. Because we think that there is a kind of, I would say, 11th commandment, and this is our motto: you should not be indifferent. So if anything bad happens, you should react immediately. And this is the core of all our educational activities, and these are words by the late Marian Turski, who was the Auschwitz survivor and the member of our museum council. You can see his mural here, it's also inside the museum. So this is for us the most important, and my last sentence is that before, the museums were created around their collections mainly. Then, some years ago, there appeared this concept of so-called critical museum, which means that us, as people from the museum, we should be as vocal as books, as theaters, and so on. We should not only be, you know, closed in our showcases. But I think that from this critical museum, it's important to talk also today about empathy and about care about individual people. So that would be my kind of starting point. Thank you again.
Thank you, Joanna. Pavla?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Michal and Joanna and Barbara for being here, for accepting our invitation. It's a great honor to be sitting next to you. I'd like to thank all of you for coming, especially my colleagues from the museum. And please feel free, if you hear that I say something wrong or incorrect or incomplete, shout at me or just at everyone, and I'll be happy if you do that. What I'd like to, and probably because we are here in Prague, so I don't want to speak about the origin or the Jewish Museum in general. I wanted to show you a few slides from one of our synagogues, and that's the Klausen Synagogue. So it's a synagogue. We took down the exhibition Jewish Customs and Traditions that was there for 30 years. We did it last summer. The exhibition was old, it was overdue, and we basically started using it as a sort of community center. And we didn't have an exact plan. We hoped that we could find partners who would help us bring some meaningful programs. And it feels after 1 year that it actually exceeded our expectations in a way. We did and I'll show you a few slides from only a few events that took place there. We did a reading marathon together with Czech middle schools. We became part of European Heritage Days in September, where over 1,000 people visited the synagogue, and one slide got missing. Maybe it's somewhere else, but actually the first event that happened in the Klausen Synagogue, and for those of you who had been there before, the synagogue was full of big wooden dark cases. The objects were already suffering there. Most of the visitors came in very briefly and then left again. They didn't have a place to sit and things like that. And so we wanted to open it for people, not only regular visitors, but for people from Prague, from the Czech Republic, to be able to use it for different events. And the first event that happened there was a Yom Kippur service organized by Prague Progressive Jewish Community at Chaim, and it was the first service that happened there since 1942, so it was a very special and moving event. But let's move forward. Then it was used by also our partner organization, a fund for Holocaust victims, for their charity event. This was the biggest adventure. For the first time, the Jewish Museum participated in the Signal Festival. It's a big festival now already with 20 years of history, of light, video, new media installations all over Prague. And we invited a young Czech artist, Jan Poš, who prepared a special installation for the place. And during the course of 4 nights, the synagogue was visited by more than 6,000 people. So we are really happy about that. We worked with Shtettlfest, and we had a theater performance. And the last piece was a panel exhibition that we prepared together with the Spanish embassy about Jews in Al-Andalus. And again, it was a very special moment. It was free for people. It was part of the museum too, but otherwise it was open for 2 months and free for people to visit. And I think that's about it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the answers. And we can see a lot of is happening in Jewish museums. And perhaps they're changing and developing and trying to be relevant. And I'd like, perhaps in the next round, let's try to dig a bit deeper into what it means for to be the Jewish Museum today for society, and perhaps for the perspective. It's important to remember that Jewish museums came into being at the time of the fear of loss of Jewish culture, community, heritage. I think in a way it's valid for all 3 museums, even though POLIN is newer, but its predecessors, be it the YIVO Institute, or be it the Jewish Library in Warsaw, I think were of course very much to be seen in that context. Then Jewish museums very much changed and developed by the end, after the end of communism, during the kind of rediscovery of not just Jewish culture and Jewish past, but also the kind of multi-ethnic heritage. And so, what I'm trying to say, the context matters, and we live in a different world. So I was wondering if you could position what you're doing in this broader context.
I mean, first of all, I think the founding of the Jewish Museum Vienna, and I think mostly, maybe other museums too, was not only in a time of, which is often described the time of assimilation, but it was also, especially in Vienna, which became 2 years after the capital of anti-Semitism. It was especially because Jews were afraid. They wanted to fight back. So I think the second thing is the fight against anti-Semitism was really a crucial point of opening Jewish museums. In Vienna, the first curator, he said, well, you go to the Jewish Museum and we show you that Jews are like every other people celebrating their holidays. They live like every other people, so we prevent anti-Semitism. And maybe you now could say, well, from 1895 on you tried to stop it and it never worked. Why do it again and do it today? And I always answer that fighting against anti-Semitism is not the purpose only of Jewish museums if the rest of the society doesn't care. So we have to fight together. But yes, the fight of against anti-Semitism, I think it's from back end of the 19th century till today, it's really important. And it became, over the last years, even more important than it was before. Second of all, even 1895, those men who founded the Jewish Museum Vienna thought that they could show the broad variety of Jewish life in Vienna. And I think that's the second thing that didn't change. Because we do it differently, of course. We have, museum education is now on a complete other level, and we, I think we speak to a totally different audience, but in somehow it has not changed. And what Joanna said before, I think one other point did not change, because we are telling history, Viennese history, from a Jewish perspective, from the perspective of Jews who lived or are living in Vienna. And I think this is very important and very special, because our Vienna Historical Museum is only like 10 minutes walking distance away. And of course, they tell Jewish history. They add, as they say, they add the Jewish history to the Viennese history. And I say, from my point of view, this would never be the perspective of a Jewish museum, because there is no Jewish history which could be added to the history of a city, because the Jewish history of Vienna is the Viennese history. There is not one without the other. And in every street, in every organization, in every outskirt in Vienna, there is Jewish history, because it was the third largest Jewish community in Europe. So I think the goals didn't change that much, but how we do it today. I think how people go to museums today, this is what changed a lot.
Thank you, Barbara. Perhaps we continue with Pavla?
Well, I also think that some things haven't changed, that the Jewish museums are here to care about the legacy, the legacy of Jewish history, culture, religion, and each museum does it in a different way. Sometimes it's a general core exhibition about Judaism, and but in case of Prague, of course, it's based on the history of Jews in Czech lands and Moravia, and we continue to do that in that perspective. I think our mission hasn't changed. You can see it here at the Maisel Synagogue, and with the continuation at the Spanish Synagogue. So they are major exhibitions focused on the history. But I think what changed is, of course, many roles that museums fulfill today, or would like to fulfill, or should today, I think that it should be now more. We have to care about the objects, but we should also care about the meaning of the objects. So it's connected with ethical collecting and with provenance research and basically repatriation of things that we find out that don't belong to this region. And I think what is also very important, what is different from the beginning, when, for example, our museums came into existence, it's that we have these international networks, and they are incredibly important. This panel talk is proof of it. There's a wonderful organization called Association of European Jewish Museums, and we work very actively together, and that brings a new project, new responsibilities, and in some ways we are trying to be an example. In very few coming weeks, you will hear about a collection of Sephardic textiles from our museum collections that we will be returning to Greece. Our curatorial team spent a year or over a year researching these 40 objects with their colleagues from Athens, and they will find, these pieces will find a new home in Greece where they will be treasured, but also where they will find the connection with the community that they used to belong to. So yes, so I think some things stay the same, but some things move with this world that is very much interconnected.
Thank you. But from both of you, I can hear a little bit of emphasis on continuity, and from the two Jewish museums with longer history. So let's see how this is in Warsaw, museum with shorter history.
So if I think about your question, specifically and generally, so specifically why we think that Jewish museum in Poland was needed, I would answer to fill the gap. Because after the war, during the communism, I don't know how was it in Czech, in Austria it's a completely different situation, the memory about the Jews and Jewish culture was step by step erased. And we realized that there are generations of young people who were raised in Poland who had no idea about Jews, who had no idea how important role Jews played and how they were absolute part of Polish society. So we wanted to fill the gap. We wanted to bring back this history of Poland and present it from the Jewish perspective. We wanted to show that this, I would say, dominant way of presenting history during communism, which was about very unifying version of history, nothing about minorities, nothing about people who were different. So we wanted to show that, hey, but there were people who were different, but they were part of society. On the other hand, for Jews who had their roots in Poland, and who are living abroad, and who had, as I said at the very beginning, very bitter connection with the memory about Poland, and sometimes they gave the pledge to their parents that they will never ever come to Poland because it's the place where Holocaust happened. We wanted to show them, come, be proud of your history, don't only connect this land with the Holocaust, see how rich civilization you have created here. So that would be specific. And general, I would agree with what Barbara and Pavla has said, and I think that Jewish Museum today have a huge role in kind of ethical presentation of Jewish history, not purely reminding it and bringing back, but also this ethical way, how does it feel to be a minority? How does it feel to be discriminated? And I think it's our biggest role.
Thank you. So we've heard a lot, about what the Jewish museums intend to do, why we think we exist, but how about your visitors? What can you tell us about, what do you know about the expectations of your visitors? Do they expect what you want them to learn, or is there a tension? And I wonder, I don't know, Pavla, would you like to start?
Yes. Most of our visitors come from abroad. So they are tourists. Last year we had about 600,000 people almost. So we love tourists, and 90% of them are tourists. But for us it's a huge challenge, and we would like, okay, so they are tourists. They come because we are a unique place in the world. We are located in one of the most beautiful, preserved, historical Jewish town, and we have also beautiful objects to show. So that's very special, and we attract people sort of without even trying too hard. We are lucky. But we would like to treat them in a way that they could also become a sort of part of our community at large. So we'd like them to live with an experience that is enjoyable, that they would recommend us to their friends. We are trying to promote online ticket sales, which means that we'd like to stay in touch with them if they allow us. Not every day, because that wouldn't make sense. It would be too much bombarding them with emails, but from time to time. And then when I came back to the museum 2.5 years ago, there was basically no space for temporary exhibitions. And so it's very difficult to attract Czech visitors if you don't change exhibitions and if you change them every 20 years. So I believe most of my colleagues feel the same way, and we've changed this direction. We are working on a few reconstruction, and that's why I was also showing you the slides from the Niklová Synagogue, where we are working on finding ways how to attract people from the Jewish community, people from Prague, people from the Czech Republic, to put us on their, when they are looking for what to do next weekend, so to be able to offer them something. So we are working very intensely on new temporary as well as one core exhibition, and we just would like people of different generations and different backgrounds to be able to find something for themselves here.
Thank you, Barbara. Do you want to?
Yes, we do regularly visitor surveys, and we are right now in the middle of one. So what I can tell you is what we did last year. We have, our visitors are approximately half tourists and Austrians. Within Austrians, it's mostly Viennese. Tourists overall are most interested in Vienna 1900 and the Holocaust. And yes, we have Vienna 1900 and the Holocaust in the Jewish Museum Vienna, but, and I have to say but because I think it's my role to say but, the Jewish Museum Vienna will not talk only about Sigmund Freud, Gustav Mahler, etc. The Jewish Museum is obliged to talk about the Jewish poor in Vienna around 1900, about Jewish workers and Jewish communists and social democrats. So yes, we talk about Vienna 1900 and in one way what tourists want to experience in a Jewish museum, but we add something else. We do it in a little bit different way because that's accurate. Not every Jew was rich and famous, and I think that's one way to prevent anti-Semitism, is to fight these positive prejudice. School groups or teachers want to have a quick overview over Judaism and a historical tour for the children, for the school children. And again, I say yes, but we have to add something, because like Jewish holidays, and I can explain Jewish holidays, but they want to know how do Jews celebrate Shabbat. And I say, well, some Jews don't, I have to say, and some do, and they do it in another way. So please don't forget that. So I think visitors, the Viennese visitors, are mostly interested in the temporary exhibition, of course. So visitors expect a lot from a Jewish museum, because it's in some way it's always a museum which touches identity more than other museums. But on the other hand, it's not our role to fulfill the wishes of the visitors. It is our role to educate. That means in a friendly way, yes. For me, it's important. You're interested in Vienna 1900. I am too. But to give the visitors something to think about, not only to fulfill their wishes they already know about. So, but to surprise them, to maybe even make them a little bit angry, because it's not exactly the same as they wish to be. But surprise them and give them something to think about.
Thank you. Provoking visitors, right?
No, I'm not provocative. I think having something to think about might be for some people provoking. For me, it's the starting point of learning. And if I've nothing to think about, if I was sitting here and believing I know it all, who am I? No, I don't know everything, and I think if this is provoking, then provoking means learning. For me, it's a starting point of learning.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Joanna?
When I'm the last, I'm forgetting the question, but yes, I remember the question. No, I remember. Talking about, addressing to what Barbara just said, I think that every museum curator has a dream that the visit at the museum should be kind of transformative experience, you know, that the visitor exit and wow, something happened. So that's also our dream. Talking about audience, yes, also we do a lot of research and survey on them. We have the same situation. I mean, half of our visitors are from abroad, half are from Poland, and of course this situation is changing according to all political issues like war in Ukraine, pandemia, war in Israel, you name it. You know, it changes. But generally whoever is coming and whoever exits the exhibition, they say one sentence: wow, we didn't know. Because if we are showing them the whole broad 1,000 years, very few people really know a lot about it. I have just one anecdote. When we were opening the museum with the Israeli Ministry of Culture, we wanted Israeli groups to come. to our museum, not only to former death camps, and then Israeli Ministry of Culture told us, well, but these groups have only 15 minutes to visit your museum. Okay, so then we said, but listen, 15 minutes for this exhibition, it's not a lot. So they said, so tell us which historical gallery is the most important, where our groups should go. So we answered in the most Jewish way. We said, so you tell us. So what is the most gallery in your thinking? So they entered and they said, oh, Holocaust, we know about it. Well, maybe beginnings, maybe the medieval. Oh, no, or maybe this kind of 16th century, 7th. And then step by step, they decided that it should be the whole experience of visiting the whole exhibition of 1,000 years. So basically, our tourists from abroad who are coming, they are coming to see this whole 1,000 years. Our Polish visitors, especially Warsaw visitors, it's the same like Viennese, so how many times they can go back to permanent exhibitions, so we have to attract them in a million ways. For example, with concerts, temporary exhibitions, you know, workshops and so on. But I think what is really important is that even for people who are not so fascinated with Jews, not so fascinated with history, we are step by step trying to show them, you know, to approach them. And maybe you are not interested in history, so come for the concert or come with your child to play for a while. And then step by step they start to come back.
Thank you. I think there's a little bit of sense of challenging the expectations and working with them actively. But Joanna, you mentioned the current situation, you mentioned the wars. And the difficulties of this world, and it's a question I think which we cannot avoid, and because we live in this context of cultural polarization, political polarization, and so I was wondering if you could say a little bit about the experience of your museums, also in terms of any political pressures exerted on you, and the strategies how you confront that. And perhaps because you said you're always the last.
That I will not remember. Oh, that one I will remember. So, well, concerning concerning wars. So first of all, I have to say that for us now, if we are talking about war, we should talk about two wars. I mean, Ukraine, which is really kind of behind our borders, and there are approximately 2 or 3 million of Ukrainians in Poland. I'm sure that in Czech it's also similar. So first of all, we had to adjust our program for them. And it's not only the matter of doing things in Ukrainian, but also think thoughtfully about the program that should be addressed for women and children who just escaped from the bombarded cities. So that's one thing. But I would say, but please don't think that I'm not serious about it. It was not the main challenge. The main challenge happened after October 7th, 2023, and it's for all Jewish museums. So I should say that us as the museum, we were trapped in our own trap, because we wanted to be so not indifferent, we wanted to talk about discrimination, migration, and so on and so forth. And for a few years, when the right-wing government was ruling in Poland, we were perceived as a kind of island of freedom, yeah, and so on. So after October 7th, many people who were our former audience, who were cooperating with us, were like artists, scholars with kind of left-wing sympathies, they say, okay, so what is now your position toward what's going on in Israel, what is the politics of Israel, what is Israel doing in Gaza, and so on and so forth. Even though we never ever had in our program subjects connected with Israel. We were about history of Polish Jews. So I have to say that it was a very difficult for us ethical situation, because also among our own colleagues in our museum, there were people who say, one should be vocal, one should, for example, condemn Israel. The others who had different opinions, they were against it. So we have to somehow balance and also keep in mind that we are not the media, we are not newsroom, we are museums. We do not have to react immediately. But that's really a challenge for us.
Barbara?
Yes, I think October 7th we all will never forget. And it was a big change for the Jewish Museum Vienna. All in all, we lost approximately 1/3 of our audience. Over everything that made that Jewish history and Jewish culture is not interesting or positive, seen as positive in one way. But right now, when I tell somebody new, I'm director of the Jewish Museum Vienna, they say, oh my God, tough times, yes. A few years ago, they would have said, wow, that's interesting, can I come? That changed a lot. So, I think, yes, we are the Jewish Museum Vienna. Yes, our main goal is to speak about Viennese history, Jewish history, but October 7th changed a lot for the Jewish community in Vienna, and that's exactly the point where October 7th and Israel comes to my museum, because it's part of the history of the Jewish community in Vienna as well. What we tried to address it. We had several events on Israel and Gaza, and I tried to invite only people, or I do invite only people who are not condemning anybody, who are articulated, who are thoughtful, who are educating in some way also. For example, we had, now I'm missing the name, we had Ronen Steinke from the Süddeutsche Zeitung. He's a lawyer, international lawyer. We have had Philip Sands, also an international lawyer, who talked about genocide in general, and is this what is going on in Gaza a genocide or not? And I think this is important, people are interested. But he does it not in a way that even if you are not on his side, you can take it, because he is a scholar and he explains it. And he is not opinionated, he is a specialist. And I think that makes the difference. So we did an installation in our project space with the title No Room for Discussion, an intervention on the world after October 7th, 2023. And there we tried to start a discussion. We combined perspectives from, or voices from Israel and Palestine, from Vienna and Europe, Jewish and Muslim voices. And when you go through this exhibition, you see, well, yes, there is a room for discussion. It is possible to tolerate different opinions. And I think that's the main goal in these times. But now it has been 2 years. We had so many like hate speech. It's also a terrible time in some ways. So I'm very much hoping it will get better this year.
hopefully. Pavla?
So, yes, of course, October 7, I feel I just started basically at the Jewish Museum, and it's like new time of history after the terrible attack on October 7. The Federation of Czech Jewish Communities, they publish every year a report about anti-Semitic incidents, and there has been a dramatic increase after October 7. Right after that, it sort of keeps on the same level now. Having said that, the Czech Republic is still one of the most friendly, safe country for Jewish communities. So, of course, we are very grateful for that. What the museum did, we very soon after the attack, we joined the initiative Bring Them Home Now, and we put up photographs of the hostages on the outside wall of the old Jewish cemetery. They stayed there basically for almost those 2 years, unfortunately. I must say that during those 2 years they were vandalized or damaged about, I don't know, 5 times. And we printed them again and put them back. And it became a sort of public forum for discussion. People would stop there and would talk to each other. And one time we wanted to take them down, and for the first time the Jewish community said, no, let's keep them there. They didn't react before, but then they said, yes, let's keep it going. And I felt a nice connection between people. That's one thing, but also I'd like to mention then whenever during the months after October 7, whenever I was opening a concert, I never forgot to say that we are a museum, we are a Czech Jewish culture institution, and that we feel sympathy and sorrow for civilian victims anywhere in the world.
Thank you. And before we open the floor, my last question. I've heard, I think, all of the answers, but especially in Barbara's, the struggle to create safe space in the museum for discussions that you perhaps cannot lead outside. And the last question is about the digital challenge, because we live in a world where most people consume information online rather than inside an exhibition room, like this one, for instance. So I was wondering how your museums struggle with this kind of challenge. How important is the physical space in the digital world, and what's your, broadly speaking, digital strategy? And I can see that Barbara already holds the microphone.
Yeah. I don't think we struggle. For me, museums is always about the people. Always. Nobody, or nearly nobody, goes alone to a museum. Most of our visitors and visitors to every museum come with friends or a partner. Why? Because they want to talk about it. And even if they come alone, they talk about it with our guides, with our service staff. People want to talk, people want to interact with other people. That's the first. And I think I'm a very digital person as well. I think there are challenges and many opportunities with the digital world. Last year we launched, 2024 we launched our online collection. We do as well exhibitions online. We are trying out for our new core exhibition to do, instead of a timeline, a AI-generated time film which travels with visitor from the 16th to the 21st century. I think all of them are big opportunities, and I know these are opportunities even to engage via social media. The Jewish Museum Vienna is very active on social media on every platform. Please join. A little bit of advertising. So I think on the one hand it's a really good media. It's an opportunity to get connected to different people and to a broader audience. Within the museum, well, media change. 30 years ago there were nearly no films in an exhibition. Now in every exhibition are some clips, some films added. So it's even the wish of many visitors to interact with the museum is much easier through social media. So I think it's an opportunity. You don't have to take every opportunity, but I think the virtual world is changing us as well as museums, and we have to think about it.
Thank you. Pavla?
Yes, I think that digital world basically has changed how the museum operate. I think it gave them incredible opportunities, like, for example, digitize their collections, showing them to people online. For researchers from anywhere in the world, if you can imagine that, they can check the collections, wasn't possible. And then there are all those open access platforms, which is for researchers, and so I think this is wonderful. And but it also, I think, gives much more work to museums, because it opens a totally new sort of fields or professions for people who now have to work at the museum. And in terms of social media, for example, so when I came back to the museum, there was one person for the whole department of public relations and marketing, and that was the practice for 30 years. And now we have 4 people, because you need them. You need to be visible. You want to communicate with people is one way of communicating with people. And in terms of inside the museums, at the exhibitions, I think that also it's wonderful to have all those new media, new means how to present things. But I personally believe that there has to be meaning behind using special technologies. I think people sometimes get carried away by new ways of presenting things, and it's not always for good. So, fine balance is always important, and I have to advertise not our place, but synagogue Žatec. If you haven't been there, and please make a trip there. It's an old synagogue. It was a wonderful community before the war, very active Jewish community. And a couple, they reconstructed a huge temple there. And there's everything. There's beautiful new architecture inside. They have VR tour of what the synagogue looked like before. They have a rabbi's room with a table, with a desk when he was writing. They have one beautiful piece of Torah curtain. And for me, recently, that was the most beautiful, balanced exhibition that people managed to put together, and they are the only other member from the Czech Republic of the European Association of Jewish Museums. So, thank you.
It's a nice reminder that we're not talking about 3 museums only, and that not all Jewish museums are large, and that there's a lot of small initiatives. But back to you, Joanna.
Mostly they are small. So when you asked me this question, I was thinking about me. How did I feel 6 years ago? And probably each one of you can think about it when the pandemic started, and we were stuck at home. And we didn't know what to do, we could not go out, and then immediately I remember when I realized that so many cultural institutions started to allow me for the access to places where normally I could never go. You know, from my bedroom I could listen to the Metropolitan Opera, I could go to any museum, and we were fascinated. But then after a few weeks it happened what you, Barbara, was saying, that we realized that there are some things that we want to do physically with somebody, to go to, I don't know, laugh or cry or whatever. So I think it's like with the Jewish history of opportunities and limitations. And without further talking, because I would like to give you floors for questions, I think for me it's not to be offended, to feel offended that something new is happening, but I think we should be very cautious about ethics. I think we should be very careful, for example, about AI, which is a wonderful tool, but you know what is going on now. What was really the strength of us as the museum was our reliability, that somebody, if one could see the object with the provenance at the museum, you were sure that it's true. And now it's the question, how will we keep our reliability, and on the other hand, how can we attract new visitors? That's it.
You ended up with a question, which I think is the best trigger for the further discussions. Let's open the floor to our audience. I just say one thing, you can ask questions in English, obviously, but also in Czech. Please speak clearly, and whoever wants to start. Petr Brod.
Já to budu když tak.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Brock. I think it's a good moment to ask 2 of you, since you're starting to renew your core exhibitions, what your vision is for those exhibitions. What shall we be confronted with in, let's say, 3 years, if those exhibitions are standing by then? What should they contain? How should they be constructed? And should the traditional ways of constructing such core exhibitions, which often turn around the Jewish cycle of the year, or the basics of the religion, or the Bible, and so on, what shall they look like in the 21st century, and what technical means will they be using?
As I already said, we already skipped the cycle of holidays. We don't do that. We don't. I think right now in the core exhibition in Vienna, we have, for example, a Chanukia from Nisko Natsan, and that's the place where we tell the story of Hanukkah. Because it's important, because you can ask why was it important for some people to celebrate Hanukkah in a concentration camp, and if you don't know that Hanukkah is all about resistance and the hope that David wins again against Goliath, you can't understand it. So right now we are in some ways including explanations on Jewish holidays in our core exhibition on the example of certain objects. I think this is not a completely bad way, but we just talked about the digital world. I think if you want to know about what is the Brit Milah, just Google it, and you will find an explanation which is fine and correct. But Jewish history in Vienna you can't experience so easily through a Google research or through social media. So I think doing a core exhibition, and I'm a big fan of core exhibitions, I have to admit, doing a new core exhibition, it is, I think the first step is to ask yourself, why do you want to do something like this in the 21st century? And I think that I would love to have every visitor who goes in our museum have the chance to experience that the uniqueness of Jewish history in Vienna. And I think that's basically the reason why I want to make this core exhibition. And very fast, your question now would be, and what is unique? And yes, and we are working now on 7 topics which are unique for Jewish history in Vienna, and this would be the 7 topics of the core exhibition. So, more I won't tell right now.
Since I know that we are the relatively younger museum, but I remember when we were working on core exhibition, we were told that exhibitions lived 25 years maximum. So that's what we were told, but if you count also the period during which we were thinking about the exhibition, and now when it's open, we are much beyond these 25 years. So my answer why we would like to change and modify and develop the exhibition, the answer is very simple, because people told us to do it. I mean, our audience, we are really doing a lot of research. So I would say 4 things that we want to change. And one is about the way how we want to change. There are different strategies. You can either do like Jewish Museum in Berlin, which means you are closing your core exhibition for 2 years or 3 years and doing it completely new from the scratch, so a kind of revolution way, or you can do it in an evolutionary way. So we want to make it in the evolutionary way. And these 4 ways how we want to make it. First of all, we want to make it more user-friendly, accessible to people. Because very often people say, hey, but we simply don't know where to go, there is no orientation, we want to, I don't know, sit here, rest here for a while, or so on. So this is this kind of making it more accessible for people. The second reason is with the multimedia that we do have, people say that we are dividing this multimedia into passive, like films, and interactives. And 12 years ago we were so proud of our interactivity. You know, nothing is getting older as quick as technology. So we know that we have to get rid of almost half of this interactivity, because people don't like it. So that's the second thing. The third is there is new historical research. New research is appearing about certain topics, so we have to adjust it. And the fourth, and this is more complicated, we would like to make for our visitors this Jewish history more, I would say, understandable in terms of longue durée. because people sometimes see this history as a scattered part within each historical period, but they don't understand this line of reasons and consequences. For example, we are talking about, I don't know, anti-Semitism in 20th century, but they do not understand that the roots are back in 19th century, and that's what they complain, that they have to see these long threads.
I want to add one thing I think we all have to change, is the inclusiveness of exhibitions. Our core exhibition is now 13 years old, and it's not inclusive. The fonts are that small, you can't read, even I can't read it without glasses. It's an exhibition which is very elegant, but you can also always, you see the object only from one angle, and if you're in a wheelchair, you have to look up. It's not comfortable, it's not accessible for everyone. I think that is one main reason why museums have to change. And it's like a joke. There are the same jokes being told from the 19th century to today, but today you tell them in a different way. And sometimes, even if there is no, and of course in Vienna it's also, we have new research, we have new objects as well, but even if we don't, we tell the story differently, because we are much more aware on so many topics we didn't know before.
Because we are here, I can't miss this question. We started working at one part of our core exhibition over a year ago for the ceremonial hall. It's a team of curators. It's been a very adventurous and exciting work, and because we have the chief curator here, Michal Seidenberg, can I ask you to comment on this part of our work?
Work? Oh, it does. How very elegant way. Pavla is in an advantage here because she has the whole team here. So my name is Michal Seidenberg. I'm the curator-in-chief for this institution, and I've been working here in a position of the visual arts curator since 1996. So I'm basically a piece of an inventory here. Where to start? Well, I mean, we've seen ups and downs, inclusiveness. I mean, you know, there are many things you can imagine under this label. So we're trying with designing this new exhibition, as Papa mentioned, in the ceremonial hall, that is dealing with sickness, dying, bereavement, and all the things that are not funny at all. And yet we are trying to interpret them as an uplifting and very important part of the experience. That is the experience of life of every living creature, every living person. So there is a huge opportunity actually to find the common ground for anyone, coming from any background, any age, any language, linguistic territory. So I think it's a great, not just a challenge, but it's a great opportunity to use that common ground to talk to the, you know, vastest possible audience that we can ever imagine. Because we all gonna die in the end. And is there anything beyond that? Is there not? How Judaism views this, you know, what is the framework for telling the story? Well, again, you know, there are Jews, as Barbara said initially, there are Jews who celebrate Shabbat, there are Jews who don't. There are people who believe there is something after death, there are people who don't. And they still call themselves Jews, you know, as one. So we're obliged to tell this story, and we're also obliged to include the audience into this, I believe, a sort of a dialogue. So, not to be very long, because Pavla was so generous to give me the word on her behalf. And just to serve this discussion, I would only say that we're planning a very complex exhibition in the smallest building possible, that is the ceremonial hall, that was nevertheless designed by an architect who didn't even have a name until this new exhibition will be on. So we also researched his story, we researched the architecture, we researched his motifs and how it's done, and people who commissioned it from him. So the architecture will be part of the narrative, and we're also going to tell the story of the surroundings, you know, so why the building is in this place, what are the distances, how it was used, what is the historical material that we have and that we newly found actually about this building. And then we will tell obviously the tradition, because this is our duty to explain the tradition, and also because we're a museum, probably the only European museum that has objects. We have more than 40,000 objects in our collection, which is exceptional and unheard of in Europe, in the European context. We're obliged to use them. So we will, and we will explain the traditional story of the Hebra Kadisha and of, you know, what it means to be sick and to die as a Jew, and then we will move on to the contemporary, and that is the most exciting part for me. I do have a very strong vision for that. There is going to be the whole floor dedicated to it. It's a small building, so it's nothing big. Don't dream big. But I think it's going to be very deep in content. And again, I will follow Barbara's example. I won't tell anymore because it's going to be a secret, and it's supposed to be open next year at the beginning of the year. So.
We'll be looking forward. Thank you, Michaela. And there was a hand over there, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation that was thought-provoking. My name is Eva Lustigova, and I run the Arnošt Lustig Foundation. And my question is to all of you, how do you currently, and maybe also in the future, plan to engage young people, youth involvement? That's my question. Thank you. You are afraid that I will forget the question. It's not the future, it's the present. We are already engaging them. So first of all, I have to say that we are doing a lot of activities for parents with children, and suddenly we realize while doing all these researches that these young children, they are used to go back to the museum, so we are adjusting our activities to them. The most difficult group is the group of teenagers, because this is this gap in visitors. When you are like 5 years old, 10 years old, you are coming to museum, then it's this gap, and only when you have your own children. So we are using all these new technologies, you know, which I'm not the best person to talk about, but all these TikTok and so on, scrolls, you know, to attract them. Once they are here, what they are really mainly interested is our workshops and debates. I mean, being treated as mature person, I don't even want to use the word adult, but mature person, and to be able to talk about difficult subjects also. So that's what mainly they are interested in, and we are doing it.
Well, we have a major educational program, and that's been going on for almost 30 years. Around 20,000 students come to the museum every year for special workshops and guided tours. It's a very robust program that offers programs for small children or middle school or high school. The way I think our educational department approaches them, there are a few areas. There are workshops about customs and traditions, Jewish customs and traditions. There are programs that deal with education against anti-Semitism or stereotypes, xenophobia, and we keep changing the way, the structure, how these programs are offered. We are overwhelmed by the interest of schools. We open the seminars or the workshops at the beginning of each term, and they are immediately booked. And what is nice now, when we advertise a new position at the museum, it usually happens that the person who's applying for a job, they remember that they had come to the museum with their school. So it's really now I can tell it's a long tradition, and it's a very important part of the museum.
Not to repeat what you've already said, I now would not talk about our educational program for schools, which is also very broad, and students come with their school classes regularly. But I think there is a gap, yes, and for us the biggest challenge is to attract university students, people between 19 and 29. This is really, I think it's more difficult, so we started to, I started to go to universities to talk with students, not only in sometimes in panel discussions at the university. Sometimes I'm coming with the social media team, and we are doing something nice with students I just meet in front of the university. I think it is in a way really complicated because this generation, the Gen Z generation everybody talks about, it's so overwhelmed with all the social media, they just scroll by. Another museum, another something. So if you're new to their minds, I think, or what I experienced, it's the best, is that they meet somebody from our team, that they have the opportunity to meet me. We had, so our educational team met some special events which focus on young people, young adults, I would say, and it was knitting in the museum, something I would never do, but eventually young people knit. I didn't know that, but they do. So we did knitting in the museum. We do social media projects with university students. We work together with a design school. So I think there are workshops, but I think these are parts of getting to know young people and getting to step into their world, which is already so full and overflowing with information. Yeah, that's what we try.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. I saw Tanya. But I also say, after we finish, there will be a little reception and you will have the opportunity to still ask your question privately. Tanya.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tanya Klementova. I'm here representing a museum which doesn't exist. But I would like to share one short experience while using AI, and then I will pose the question. So, we recently prepared an exhibition based on letters from the Shoah period in Brno, in a small museum, which used a lot of AI tools. And when I show what we did to the descendants of the Jewish families who shared their private family correspondence with us to be able to prepare the exhibition, the second generation was very reserved to using the animated photographs. They told me, I am not sure that I want to see my grandma or grandpa. I have only one picture of them. I have never met them. And the picture is too precious to me that I don't want to see them dancing or hugging the animated picture. But their children, the third generation, said, this is wonderful, this is the way how we want our family history might be presented, because this is attractive. I see the people as they are lively now. So there was a very big difference between the second generation approach and the third one. So I respected, of course, what the second generation wished. Finally, we decided to not use the animated pictures. But my question is whether, when you deal with the future of your core exhibitions or temporary exhibitions, and in Vienna case, they are very, I admire the way how you do it, very courageous. How you deal with the voice of the second and third generation, do you or not, when you create new ideas of the content of your museums? Is it important what the Jewish minority says? Do you deal with their voice? Do you consult it somehow? That's my question.
Always, the Jewish community will ever be our stakeholder. So I have to take very serious what they are, what their concerns are. But they are not museums professionals. So we don't make surveys within the Jewish community what type or topic of in an exhibition they want, because I think that would not be interesting choices. For example, the wife of our cantor, she paints, and yes, if I would make a survey, I think parts of the Jewish community would say, let's make an exhibition with her paintings, and you don't want to see it, believe me. So I think, and it doesn't make any sense. But pleasing her, yes. But what else? So I think yes, we have to take it very seriously. Yes, especially when it comes to the different perspectives on Shoah history from the second and third generation, or even fourth and fifth generation, which is coming up. But I think still we are a museum, and we are the museum of the city of Vienna. We are not a community museum, but we, and I define myself being very close to the Jewish community. So yes, I talk all the time and every time. Sometimes I defend, sometimes I listen, sometimes I reflect something, sometimes I say, yes, you are right, we will change it. But not all the time.
Just briefly to answer your question, that's exactly what we are talking about ethics. And is somebody a subject or an object? And for me, the most important is not to hurt feelings of anyone who can be hurt. In terms of, family or somebody, it's easier to use all this, I would say, modern technology, distorting photo or voice or whatever, in terms of events that happened hundreds of years ago. But if something happened 80 years ago, 50 years ago, and there are still people who might feel hurt, that's for me the most important reason not to do it. I will give you 2 examples. One example is we were doing the exhibition for the 80th anniversary of Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and we were talking not about heroes and fighters, but about civilians. And we were using their diaries. And there was one woman whose diary we were using, and our communication department decided that they will create AI voice of this woman. And I don't remember such a huge debate that we have had. Eventually they did it, and of course in all these media things they won millions of prizes. But for me it was an ethical question, not so clear. And the second example is, I don't know if you know, it's this project of Shoah Foundation, Spielberg Shoah Foundation, when they are recording interviews with survivors for many, many hours, and at the end you can see the hologram of this person and you can ask this person any question you want. And we also had a lot of debates, so because you are using scraps of sentences and words of somebody, and you can really change it by asking a question which probably this person would answer in a completely different way. So for me, it's a very delicate thing between making things more interesting for contemporary visitors, like colored photos and moving things, but this ethical threshold.
Thank you. Pavla?
I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that our testimonials and archival materials at the museum, especially from regarding Shoah, are being used in quite a traditional way. When we use them, it's always people gave their consent when we recorded the interview, and we never got. We still maybe somebody will happen, but we are not thinking about using AI or super modern technologies working with this. We may do it with some older stuff to make it more interesting, but to make it more like contemporary or pleasing or surprising for visitors, but not with this kind of archival material.
Thank you, Pavla. And now I'm in this difficult position, although I've seen your hands, that I have to cut off the discussion. And I realize we should have taken 5 hours for this. But I think I'm really impressed by this rich array of ideas and this combination of tradition, thinking about difficult topics, and about ethics. We have heard it several times. So I've been now, not that I thought differently before, but now I'm really persuaded that Jewish museums are very important and vibrant and essential for our societies. I'd like to thank our 3 speakers. It's great having you here. Hopefully, Barbara and Joanna, it's not the last time. Thanks to the Jewish Museum for hosting us as well. Thank you for staying so long and hopefully staying a little longer during the reception and perhaps talking privately. And then, last but not least, thanks to our interpreters, without whom we would be lost in translation, I think. So, thank you so much.